Welcome to the deep dive. This is where we take the stack of sources you've given us, articles, notes, whatever you send, and really dig in.
Yeah, we try to pull out the key stuff, the surprising bits, the things you really need to know, make it faster for you to get the core idea.
Exactly, your personal fast track.
And for this deep dive, the sources are, wow, there's something else. Excerpts from a really powerful personal account.
Not just a story, right? It feels more like a journey.
Totally. It's a raw, unfiltered look at someone going through, well, extreme adversity, pushing physical limits way past what you'd think is possible. Real self-transformation.
It's intense stuff. You can feel it coming off the pages.
Definitely intense. Comes from real hardship.
So our mission today, let's unpack this. Go through the experiences, the mindsets, the actual strategies in these pages. Figure out how someone overcame such huge obstacles.
And maybe redefine what's possible, yeah.
Right. And crucially, what this means for you listening right now. How does this apply?
Okay, so where does it start? Well, the sources set the stage with a really tough beginning. Childhood marked by serious volatility. Abuse.
Constant fear, it sounds like, and tight financial control.
Absolutely. There are these specific details, like a place called Paradise Road that felt, the opposite, like hell.
And the father controlling all the money. From the family business, the roller rink.
Every cent. And the need for him as a kid to hide injuries at school. Because showing them meant trouble at home. Just brutal.
Okay, let's really dive into that atmosphere at Scaland. Because the sources make it sound, well, complicated.
It really was.
Yeah.
The father had this public image, almost like the town mayor at the rink, spinning records, giving out free drinks. Charming,
But behind closed doors?
Completely different.
Right.
Cruelty, control, not just over the kids, but specifically denying the mother any access to money, no credit, nothing.
And the threat of violence was always there.
Always. There's this one story, just chilling, an argument. The mother hits a panic button.
Yeah.
And the father aims a gun. Not at her, at the narrator, who was 8 years old, standing maybe 20 feet away.
Wow, 8 years old. That just...
Yeah.
It tells you everything about the level of fear.
Exactly. And you see how trapped the mother was? The sources make that crystal clear.
No money of her own, right? No bank account, no credit card.
Nothing.
Right.
And the father refused to marry her. So legally. She had no rights to anything. Community property, zilch.
The sources even say he treated others, well, let's just say not family, better than her.
Yeah. And she came from this middle-class background, such a stark contrast to the abuse she was living with.
But she couldn't leave the kids.
Couldn't leave them. Not in that environment
Yeah.
with him. That's what the sources say.
So eventually they do leave, but the money problems, they didn't just vanish.
Oh, not at all. The sources get into the real nitty-gritty. Living in public housing. Paying like $7 a month rent.
$7, wow. And child support.
Totally unreliable. Maybe $25 every few weeks. If that.
And the mom's working, trying to go to school too.
Yeah, department store jobs. Indiana State University. That costs money. And get this, welfare denied them help because they owned a car. An old car, but still. Rules are rules, apparently.
Unbelievable. So they were literally counting pennies.
Counting change from mason jars. The sources mention this habit the mother learned from her own father, who lived through the Great Depression, valued every single cent.
So you've got this foundation of hardship, financial struggle, and then it gets even heavier.
Yeah, the trauma just keeps layering on. There's this account of witnessing death, the murder of a guy named Wilmoth, who was close to them.
He saw the scene.
Saw the blood. On the garage floor, he was only 14, walked right through the crime scene, police tape and all. He describes absorbing this heavy vibe.
And they never figured out exactly why Wilmoth was killed.
Police didn't know. Speculation in the sources points towards maybe a shady business deal or drugs. Either way, just more danger, more instability in his world.
So with all that history, they try for a fresh start. Move to Indianapolis.
Right. And he gets into this private school, Cathedral High. But how he gets in...
He cheated, right. On the exams. Copied work.
Yep. Straight up admits it in the sources.
Yeah.
Somehow lands in AP classes, but feels like a total imposter the whole time.
He played basketball there, too, freshman team.
Yeah, started at point guard. Some success. But because he felt like an academic fraud, as he puts it, it didn't really build any real confidence,
And then they couldn't afford it anyway.
Exactly. Mom had to pull him out. Too expensive.
Which meant going back to Brazil, Indiana. That sounds like it was rough.
Really difficult return, yeah.
Yeah.
The sources say he tried to act confident, but inside, deeply insecure, Still carrying all that trauma from Buffalo, from Brazil before.
He hadn't really dealt with it yet.
Not at all. Hadn't gotten real with himself. And this insecurity flared up during basketball tryouts there.
How so?
Culture clash, his city trash talk. He even compares himself to Draymond Green, which is pretty funny. It just didn't fly in that sort of farm country setting.
So the coaches didn't like it?
Moved him to a position he didn't know, down low. And he just kind of shut down, gave up on it.
And that feeling adrift, insecure, no direction, that leads to this huge moment, right? In the bathroom mirror.
Absolutely pivotal. He describes looking in the mirror and just feeling total disgust, giving himself this incredibly harsh lecture.
What did he say?
Called himself a low-budget thug with no purpose and no future. Said he wanted to punch the mirror. Just pure self-loathing.
But then something shifted.
Massively shifted. He calls it his solo intervention. Right then and there. Shaved his head. A physical act to mark a mental reset.
And the message he gave himself.
Brutal. Necessary, he says. Basically, it's on you. Nobody is coming to save your ass. Not your mom, not anyone. It's up to you.
Taking full responsibility.
Radical self-accountability. And he says that moment started this ritual, this way of thinking that changed everything.
What was the immediate change? The sources talk about it being pretty dramatic.
Yeah, like night and day. Living with purpose. Studying. Working out like crazy. And this internal shift had an external effect, too.
How so?
The hate he felt, like towards racists he encountered, it just started to fade. He had this realization.
What was that?
That the people trying to bring him down, make him feel bad. They were usually deeply uncomfortable with himself. Their opinions didn't matter as much anymore.
Especially once he wasn't insecure himself.
Exactly. He started using their negativity as fuel instead of letting it poison him.
And this intense self-honesty, he actually turns it into a strategy. One of the challenges in the sources.
Yeah, the accountability mirror. Challenge #2. It's about being raw and real, he says. Getting rid of the ego. It's not fluffy self-love time.
So what do you do?
Write down your insecurities, your dreams, your goals on Post-it notes. Stick them on the mirror.
Thinking balls.
Really blunt ones. Like, if you need education, right, you aren't smart enough, period. If you're overweight, you're fucking fat. Own it.
Wow. That's harsh.
Deliberately harsh. He argues you need to be unkind in those moments to build thicker skin, to face the truth so you can actually change it.
Okay, so from there, he joins the Air Force.
Right. And there's this anecdote from boot camp. Ends up as the latrine queen.
Cleaning toilets.
Yep. Got him in a drill sergeant's bad side. But instead of hating it, he found this weird satisfaction in doing that basic, honest work really well. Kept him spotless.
But that feeling didn't last.
Oh, no. The sources mention, like 4 years later, that satisfaction was gone. He just felt numb. Nothing at all.
And that numbness plays into his attempt at pararescue training, PJ training.
Seems like it. He was physically capable by then, super fit, but he says he hadn't really mastered his mind yet.
And he got pulled from the training.
Medically pulled, yeah. Because of the sickle cell trait, which, by the way, the sources say he still has.
So he didn't technically quit.
Didn't quit on paper, but he felt he quit. He knew he'd folded mentally when things got really hard. Felt like a failure.
Even though he finished his service in TACP, working with special ops.
Yeah. Even then, he says he was never proud of it because deep down he felt like a quitter who had let fear dictate his future. That label stuck with him.
Okay, fast forward. He's out of the Air Force. And then he sees something that changes things again.
A Navy SEAL documentary. And bam, obsession hits. Like a virus, he calls it.
So he starts calling recruiters.
Relentlessly. For weeks. Calling offices all over the country.
Yeah.
Just hitting brick walls.
Why? His prior service.
That, and he was still way overweight, like significantly over the Navy limit. One office apparently just laughed at him.
But he kept calling.
Kept calling. And finally connects with recruiter Stephen Shaljo.
And this guy was different.
Totally.
What?
Shaljo apparently sensed his drive, his intensity right away, believed in him despite the weight.
Even though he was way over the 191-pound limit.
Yeah. Shaljo, described as having a pit bull energy, didn't care about the number right then. He called BUDS administration immediately while the narrator was still sitting there. Huge moment.
But even with that opening, he wasn't in a good place mentally.
Not at all. Working this miserable late-night job. Pest control in restaurants.
Surrounded by dead rats and roaches.
But he says the disgusting part wasn't the job itself that was honest work. The disgust was for his own state. Feeling nothing. Just apathy.
And that apathy leads to rock bottom, almost. The failed run.
Yeah, another really low point. Laces up. Planning to run 4 miles for his SEAL goal. Makes it maybe 400 yards.
Just collapses.
Heart racing, dizzy, has to walk back, defeated. And then just this avalanche of negativity hits him. Every insecurity.
Thinking he was born nothing, proven nothing.
Wasn't worth a damn thing.
Yeah.
The SEAL dream felt completely dead in that moment.
But then Rocky finds the old VHS tape.
Yeah, finds Rocky. Fast forwards to round 14. Watching Rocky dig deep, finds something more.
It clicked.
Something definitely clicked.
Yeah.
He realized he had a choice. Stay down, defeated, or find the power in those awful feelings that just crushed him. Use the negativity.
So what did he do?
Dumped the shake he was drinking, laced up his shoes again, went back out.
Same pain, same racing heart.
Yep. Felt just as bad initially. But this time, he deliberately pushed through it, kept going, and after a bit,
Yeah.
the pain started to fade.
And he finished the run.
Finished a full mile. That act, embracing the pain instead of running from it, that became the key.
And that key unlocked BUDS. He actually gets there. Hell Week. How did that start?
The sources describe the first hour as almost fun. Pure adrenaline. Shouting, yeah, we're in Hell Week, motherfuckers.
That probably didn't last long.
No. Reality hit hard and fast. And remember, he'd been through part of it before.
Oh, right. He got rolled back from the previous class, class 230.
Yep, double pneumonia. Medically dropped. He makes a point in the sources he didn't quit then, but he started this class 231, not fully healed, lungs still rattling.
So he's going into Hell Week already compromised. How did he cope? What were the mental tricks?
Key strategies. One was reminding himself, pain is temporary, it will end. That perspective helps.
Okay. What else?
Smiling at the pain. Sounds crazy.
Sure good.
But he found even a quick smile just for a second could make the pain back off a bit.
Stringing those seconds together?
Allows you to outlast people, maybe even find that second wind.
Does he know what causes a second wind?
He mentions that debate endorphins, oxygen, lactic acid, maybe just psychological. But the experience for him was push hardest when you feel the worst. That's how you break through, bringing your best when you feel absolutely shattered.
And this changed his whole relationship with pain, with fear.
Completely. Take his fear of water, lifelong fear, especially cold water. By the end of Hell Week, he says he wanted the ocean to be colder, wanted the wind, the mud to be worse. His mind was becoming calloused.
Even with serious injuries, swollen knee, fractured shins.
Yeah, brutal injuries during first phase.
Yeah.
And then there's the drown-proofing drill story.
The instructor's trying to drown him while he's injured, with hands and feet tied.
That's how he describes it. Bottom of the pool, actively trying to make him fail, make him panic. Unbelievable pressure.
And the medical staff, were they aware of how beat up guys like him were?
There was this sort of unspoken agreement, a don't ask, don't tell vibe, the sources suggest. If a candidate wasn't actively quitting, even if clearly injured like his knee, his lungs, the docs might not pull them unless they absolutely had to. Didn't want to crush a guy's dream if he was still fighting.
And the stakes felt even higher for him now, right? He had a family.
Huge pressure. He describes breaking down, sobbing on the phone with his mom, telling her if he failed this time, it wasn't just him going down. It would take his new family back to square one.
And then, amidst all that intensity, tragedy strikes. Mr. Scott dies on the grinder.
Yeah. Sudden shocking. And the response from the instructors? Cold. Necessary, maybe, for the job.
That's what they say.
Gathered the trainees, told them, basically, this is your world now. He's not the first, won't be the last. And then Hell Week just ended. Hours early. Stark.
So he finishes Hell Week, but he's got fractured shins, and he still needs to run a lot.
Up to 60 miles a week.
Yeah.
Insane. So he comes up with this solution.
The duct tape casts.
Yep. Wakes up super early. Layers tube socks. Wraps his feet, ankles, shins tight with duct tape. Creates these makeshift soft casts. Just to make running slightly less agonizing.
And what's going through his head while he's doing this, running on broken legs?
This internal monologue, like, who else would do this? You are a fucking machine. He found power in the absurdity, the extremity of it.
And the pain, was it constant?
Excruciating for the first 30 minutes. But he learned if he could just endure that, around the 40-minute mark, it would lessen, become manageable.
And that daily ritual.
That was building the calloused mind, deliberate daily mental forging through physical agony.
This ties into another concept from the sources, right? Visualization. Challenge #5.
Absolutely. But it's not just wishful thinking. It's painting a detailed picture of success, feeling that success. That feeling pulls you forward.
But there's a catch.
Huge catch. Visualization will never compensate for work undone. You can't visualize lies. It only works if you're also doing the brutal work.
Scheduling suffering, as he calls it.
Exactly. You visualize earning it through that scheduled suffering. They have to go together.
So he applies this mindset to ultra running after the SEALs. Starts with the San Diego one-day race.
With zero ultra training, basically. Just jumps in.
But not just for himself. There was a bigger purpose.
Right. Supporting the families of the SEALs killed in Operation Red Wings. He mentions Marcus Luttrell, the lost teammates, the helicopter crew. That purpose fueled him.
Even when it got incredibly painful, quads throbbing, feet bleeding.
Oh, yeah. He talks about having to constantly dig into the cookie jar, recalling every past moment of suffering he'd overcome, using that memory bank as fuel.
And he finishes. How far?
101 miles. But he was walking by mile 70. Later found out he had stress fractures. He was near collapse at the end.
Kate, his partner, was worried. Kidney failure.
Yeah, a doctor suggested the ER. But he refused painkillers. He wanted to feel the pain of it. Said it felt harder, more meaningful to him personally than even BDS or becoming a SEAL.
That's intense. But even after 101 miles, he gets rejected from the Badwater race.
Yep. Not good enough, apparently. Needed the certified triple-digit finish on a tougher course. Had to prove himself beyond a minimum standard.
Which leads him to the Hurt 100.
And Hawaii.
Yeah.
100 miles, but with insane elevation, gained 24,500 feet. Himalayan shit, he calls it. And he knows he can't just wing this one, especially still recovering.
So how did he train? The sources mention his routine as a SEAL instructor.
Yeah, that routine was his training, essentially. Up at 5 a.m., hours of cardio before anyone else, run, swim runs, 12-mile rucksacks, sometimes adding extra ruck runs with 50 pounds.
Why so early? Why so much?
Build a mental edge. Deep self-awareness, unshakable confidence. He felt that deliberate early suffering made him better at everything, not just running, but life.
And during the Hurt 100 itself, he pushed the absolute limit. Hallucinations.
Yeah, saw another runner, Akos Konya, apparently moving in circles. Asinus energy systems were crashing.
And the temptation to quit in moments like that.
He calls it the mind seeking comfort, your identity wanting to escape the pain. The only way to beat that, he says, is by callousing the mind daily, chasing pain like it's your damn job.
Okay, so he finishes Hurt 100, now Badwater. The preparation sounds incredibly detailed.
Meticulous. Drove the course, planned cooling stations for the Death Valley heat, mapped water and ice stops precisely, visualized the hardest parts, like the climb to Town Pass.
He even invented new training, barbaric PT.
Yeah, out of sheer fear of the distance, he knew he had to train his mind to overcome those one-second decisions, the impulse to quit when pain screams at you. That's how you access the untapped 60%.
And the race itself, Badwater.
Brutal, as expected. Walking by mile 42, feet totally swollen, blistered, refused to take his shoes off, though.
Hiked the big climb, Town Pass.
All 18 miles of it. He mentions that military saying, we don't rise to the level of our expectations, we fall to the level of our training.
And his training was those ruck runs.
Exactly. He fell back on that rhythm, that discipline he'd built, just kept moving. He even found himself competing near the end with elite guys like Scott Jurek.
This whole approach, it feeds into this principle of staying hard, right?
It's about never getting soft, never resting on achievements. He uses this example of someone successful where the work itself is the reward, the sweetest fruit.
Not the status or the money.
Right. The process, the grind. And that means ruthlessly prioritizing, cutting out the bullshit that wastes time and energy.
Which is another challenge. Schedule it in. Compartmentalization.
Challenge. #8. Avoid multitasking, which he thinks just makes people mediocre and get truly productive.
Ow. Step 1.
Brutal honesty again.
Yeah.
Track your day meticulously. Timestamps. Find those 4 or 5 hours most people just waste scrolling, drifting.
And what?
Schedule your priorities into specific blocks, even just 15-minute blocks, intense focus, and build in backstops.
Backstop.
If a task runs long, you have a hard stop time. You must move to the next priority. No excuses. Disciplined transitions.
This level of discipline sounds like it mirrors the SEAL standards he describes.
Absolutely. Constant judgment. Needing to be perfect with weapons, he tells a story about a guy carrying a broomstick for days after a mistake.
Because under fire,
you don't magically become a hero, you fall back on your training. And that training baseline has to be incredibly high, higher than the threat.
And for him, the ultimate training was pushing himself physically, going to war with himself.
That's how he preferred it, yeah. That felt like the purest test.
Did all his teammates appreciate that intensity? Training like that every day?
Apparently not all of them. Some saw it as too much, maybe saw his intensity as showing their perceived weakness. for not wanting to join him daily.
But he felt it was their duty.
His belief, yeah. Duty to maintain that duty-esque mentality. Always prove yourself, never get comfortable.
Which perfectly sets up this concept of starting at zero.
Maybe the most powerful idea, uses the ranger school analogy.
Yeah.
Everyone starts as a maggot reborn. No past achievements matter. Earn it today.
So no matter what you accomplish.
You can't be satisfied. Life keeps moving. You're either getting better or getting worse. Celebrate the win. Yes. Acknowledge the accomplishment. Dial it back down. Set new, harder goals. Wake up tomorrow and it's day one again. Start at zero. The refrigerator is never full, as he puts it. Always hungry, always striving. Stronger, faster, smarter, more reliable. The work is never done.
And embrace being the beginner again.
Yes. Become the dumb fuck in the classroom again. Be willing to ask basic questions. Admit ignorance. That's the only path to real growth.
Okay, and then comes maybe the most mind-blowing part of the sources, the heart condition.
Yeah. Diagnosed with an atrial septal defect. Hole in his heart.
Which should have disqualified him from the military, from jumping, diving.
Absolutely. If they'd known, he wouldn't have been allowed in BUDS.
So he did all of this BUDS, the ultras, bad water.
With a hole in his heart. Running on a tank perpetually half full is how he puts it. Just astonishing.
And for him, this isn't luck or genetics.
No. He frames it as absolute proof. Proof of the power of the human mind when it's deliberately hardened, pushed relentlessly.
Then he has surgery for it later. A second surgery.
He does. And just before going into pre-op, he has this fleeting thought, maybe now I can be satisfied. Retire.
And the answer?
Instant. Visceral. Fuck no. That drive, that calloused core, it was just unshakable. It still is, apparently.
Wow. The sources also mention, just briefly, a reconciliation later in life with his brother.
Yeah, after like 15 years apart. Notes his brother also found his own path, got away from the father, earned a PhD. Different journey, same theme of overcoming.
And he gives credit to specific people who helped along the way.
Important point.
Yeah.
Shell Joe the recruiter, Kenny Bigby, the funny guy at BUDS, Bill Brown in Iraq, Drew Sheets and his boat crew, Sean Dobbs, whose story inspired him. It wasn't all solo.
What a story arc, though. From that incredibly harsh beginning through self-doubt, extreme physical challenges, it's quite the journey laid out in these sources.
And the principles are so clear, if demanding. Accountability, effort, using pain, callousing the mind, starting at zero, scheduling life.
A tough blueprint, but a powerful one.
And the underlying message is stark. You earn your accomplishments, no entitlement. The scoreboard, as he says, does not lie. Your results reflect your discipline. Simple as that.
So the final thought for you listening to really chew on, drawing from all this, if the human mind, when you deliberately harness it, when you push it way past what feels possible through that scheduled suffering, that relentless discipline.
If it can achieve things that baffle doctors and military experts, even with, a literal hole in the heart.
Then what untapped potential is sitting there inside your perceived limits, inside your 60%? What could you access if you were truly willing to chase the pain,